Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Now, Logan will be joining in a minute. Unfortunately, he's having some sort of tornado-related issues when it comes to his internet. But he should be joining very shortly, hopefully within the next few minutes. What a wild week for gaming news. The Xbox Game Showcase is just around the corner, as well as the Jeff Keighley Game Show, whatever that's called. Summer Games Fest, I believe, yep. It's an exciting time to be a gamer. You know, you're going to see a lot of people over the next week, 2 weeks, completely lose their marbles, act weird online over video games. But the truth is, it's never been a better time to be a gamer. So many different titles coming out, so many risky titles, so many big titles, indie developers taking chances. You have things like Expedition 33, which came out recently, absolutely blazing the charts, which you love to see for a very new IP like this. It's a good time. Now, before we get into all the topics and what we've been playing, we have the first super chat of the day. Thank you very much by Adidas20 for the $2. He says, salute. Well, thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. Everything that's given to the channel goes straight back into it. I've got a lot of cool things planned over the coming months. Live streams, let's plays, on-camera news content. It's all coming. It's going to be really cool. I've just wanted to look right, if that makes sense. Now, we have an interesting show ahead, a bunch of topics. I think we have about 17 topics today. If you're new to the channel, I like to say that this is a mullet-style podcast where you have the short topics up front and you have the long topics up back. So it's going to be a good show. Now, just waiting to hear back from Logan because he should be joining any second. But again, here he is.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, Logan, we can hear you. How are you doing?
Doing good. I might have to run Jackety Split, but I'm here for right now.
Okay, good. I mean, I've seen Twister, so I think I can get some sort of gist about how bad it could be in that area. Is it really that bad at the minute? Okay, I think his internet's bottomed out. But if you can speak at all, Logan, just hop right in because tornadoes aren't any joke, and unfortunately, it happens. In the UK, the worst we have to deal with is some light rain and maybe the odd occasional, angry squirrel up the street. Anyway, Logan, can you speak yet? Okay, he's having issues. Just jump in when you can. It's okay. It's a conversational podcast. I've been playing a bunch of games this past week. One of which I'll get out quickly, and that is Outcast: A New Beginning. It's a third-person, over-the-shoulder action-adventure game. It's a sci-fi open-world game, and it's a AA game. Came out about a year and a month ago or so, and I have to say, it's a fun game. It has its issues, and I'll get into that in a minute, but it has a fun story, the base gameplay is good, there's a jetpack in the game. It's a fun title. I'll have gameplay of that going on throughout the show, but it's a fun game. Very fun game. But it has one issue. In a game where you could, single jump, double jump, triple jump, and even quadruple jump, if I can say that right, later on in the game, you can't grab ledges. In most modern games, you can grab ledges. So it feels a bit weird using a jetpack in a video game where you can't do that. But outside of that, it's actually pretty fun. So if you're into AA games, and I always praise AA games for being different, actually being, taking risks. They are basically, I want to call them big budget indie games, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I like to play them. It's a fun title, I think people like it. It's been on sale recently on Xbox for, I think it was on sale for about £15. So if you're into sci-fi games, highly recommend it. You don't have to have played the first one to actually understand the story. It kind of just throws you to the wolves anyway, whether you've played the first game or not. So highly recommend people check that out. I've also been playing Avowed. Avowed is it's a weird one because I take my time playing RPGs, and it came out in February. I should be done with it right now. The problem is there's too many games coming out, and I can't bloody finish them all. So I'm trying to split up my game time with 8 different games. I've even put Elder Scrolls Oblivion kind of on the sideline until I'm done with Avowed. But I'm finally into the 5th area of the game. It is gorgeous, this area. It's a big volcano island, and where the story's going, I can kind of tell I'm coming towards the end of the game. But I've enjoyed it. It's a really fun game. The gameplay is great. And I'm one of these people that every time there's an RPG about to come out, I gaslight myself into thinking I'm going to play through this game as a powerful mage, invest, skill points into magic, being a mage, and I never go through, never follow through with it. I always go sword and shield, no matter what the game is. I played through Elden Ring from start to finish with the base sword, the whole game with the base sword and shield, and that's how I played that game. Barely used any magic, but in Avowed, it's weird because I'm actually using magic all the time. I've never done this with a role-playing game. Oblivion back in the day, you had spells tied to one certain button, so you kind of just used them whenever. In Skyrim, I'd say spells were kind of crucial to getting through some dungeons, but in Avowed, I'm using them way more than Sword and Shield, which is very weird for me because I'm not used to it yet. So even though I've put maybe about 60 hours into Avowed so far, I'll have to check, but I want to say maybe 50 of it has been using magic. Using spells in that game, so much fun. The spells actually look good, and I think spells in a lot of games don't look that good and interesting. I'll use Oblivion for an example. Spells in the original game didn't look that good. The fire spell and the ice spell were basically the same, just slightly different colours. But other than that, I'm having such a good time with it. And next up, I've been playing Warzone. I mainly play single-player games. Mainly. And long story short, for people joining the show, maybe you haven't listened before, I was huge into Call of Duty back in the Modern Warfare days. 2008, 9, whatever. The original Black Ops in 2011. Like, that was my jam. And I played multiplayer every single night. Literally every single night with my mates. And then Modern Warfare 3 came out, and I'm not even kidding, we all had the exact same opinion. We didn't like it. We didn't like the maps. We thought it sounded worse. We thought the graphics took a step back. The maps were terrible. So we all hopped back onto Black Ops or Modern Warfare 2. And then people kind of just stopped playing Call of Duty because that new excitement wasn't there for us. So I hopped onto Battlefield, where my mate was keep telling us, like, you have to try Battlefield 3. And there was a little beta called Operation Metro. And I fell in love with Battlefield that day. It was absolutely brilliant. And I played that for about a year. And then, Titanfall came out in 2014 on the Xbox One. I played that. And I basically stopped playing multiplayer afterwards. So from 2014-ish to about a year ago, I completely fell off multiplayer. And I've been getting back into it for the past year. Been playing Warzone for the past few months, and I have to say I'm absolutely loving Warzone. They brought back the original map that came out in 2020, and it's great. Right? It sounds so weird because Warzone is classed as one of those more hardcore games, but for me, I'm just really enjoying it. It's so much fun. And there's so many different ways to get into it. So if you listen to this and you like single-player games like me, and you primarily play single-player games, maybe you get burnt out now and then. Maybe you get burnt out from playing single-player games over and over and over again. And it's a nice refresher in between single-player games. That's the best way I can put it. And, if people want to get into it, there's a thing called Warzone Bootcamp, where it's basically Warzone, but with 40 players. And there's Warzone Resurgence, where it's on a tiny island with, I think, 50 people in teams of 4. It's super easy to get into, and it seems like a lot at first, but if you're like me, and you have stuck to single-player games for arguably a decade, it's a hell of a way to get into Call of Duty. Hell of a way. The fast-paced PvP multiplayer in regular Black Ops 6, I'm still trying to get good at it. I might post some gameplay later, but yeah, I will say this. For the first time in 14 years, maybe, I got 80 kills in a Call of Duty match. I was so happy. I haven't had that since about 2011 with Black Ops. I got 80 kills about 2 nights ago. I couldn't have been happier. Back in the day, you used to be overly concerned with KD ratios. Now, that's not really the case, I've noticed, with Call of Duty players. And I've actually found it even more fun because back in the day, listen to me sounding like an old fart, back in the day, back in my day, that was how you played Call of Duty. You played to keep your KD ratio over 1. And I used to have a KD ratio back in the day close to 2. I think in Black Ops, the original in 2011, I think my KD ratio was 2.2 at one point. But now I don't look at my KD ratio. It's probably awful. I'll have to check. But I'm not playing for that anymore. I'm playing it just for fun. And it's completely blown my mind. I was so competitive in multiplayer back in the day, it kind of warped how I should enjoy multiplayer. And now, I never see people talking on social media or YouTube about KD ratios. There's no obsession about it now. And I love that. That is so much better. That's a so much more fun way to play multiplayer. Black Ops 6, so much fun, the omnidirectional movement. And again, I mainly play single-player RPGs. Yet I'm loving Warzone. Who would have thought? Now, Logan, I know your internet's terrible because of the tornado and stuff. Can you speak yet? And he's gone. He'll hop back in if he can. But yeah, Warzone. It's not for the faint of heart, but if you want to play, Warzone and get into it, maybe as a noob, play Boot Camp, play Resurgence, and then, play Warzone Casuals. Because they have changed it with the latest update, where regular Warzone, you cannot play solo anymore. I think there's only duos and squads. And the only way to play singles now is casual Warzone. Now, casual Warzone isn't easy. It's regular Warzone, but there's AI bots scattered throughout the map. And it's a good way to get you aiming in tune because, again, if you're like me and you haven't played Call of Duty in 10 years, 14 years even, your aiming might be atrocious. Like, my aiming back a year ago was terrible. If I can find any old clips, I'll post them because it's hilarious. I couldn't hit a single shot. And now I can hit shots within 200 meters in a multiplayer game with moving targets. So, hooray for me. But that's what I've been playing. And, I never thought I'd actually talk about Warzone on this podcast or on my channel. Because, again, I've been making fun of multiplayer and Call of Duty and Warzone for ages now. And it turns out, if you give it a chance, maybe you'll like it. Who would have thought? Now, let's see. Okay, we have a bunch of topics to go over today. You know what? Let's give Expedition 33 a quick bit of praise because, it came out and it launched in Game Pass day one. It's a AA game at the end of the day, and it's opened up so many people's eyes to turn-based games. A lot of people get put off by playing turn-based video games. I don't know why. It's basically the only kind of combat where you can play the game with one hand and have a drink in the other. It's brilliant, really. But they've had so much success with this game that's considered niche by most people, and it continues to sell well. They sold 3.3 million in 33 days, which is beautifully ironic. The actors, are so talented. Ben Starr's been in a bunch of games over the past year and a half. He's probably going to be one of the biggest names in gaming, I'd say, in the next decade. He's probably going to be in dozens of big games. You have Charlie Cox, who's in Daredevil. Brilliant. Andy Serkis. I do not understand how Andy Serkis hasn't even won an Oscar by now. He's arguably one of the most talented actors on the planet. And the rest of the cast, they are brilliant. I can't remember the name of the actress that plays Loon. Phenomenal. And I'm only on Act 2. So even if you aren't into turn-based games, give it a try because you have no idea what you're missing out on. This is a true gem, and I think more and more people are going to discover this game, and I think people will go into this game coming out and thinking this is the best game or one of the best games of the generation. I feel lucky that we have this. I come on this podcast every week and complain about the state of the AAA game industry and how we get the same stuff over and over and over again. And you have this AA game come out with AAA quality, and it's kind of shown up the rest of the industry. It launched at, I think it was $49.99 in the US, and like, this is how you do a game, right? Brilliant story, unique, fresh. The cast, amazing. The soundtrack, they got someone off SoundCloud. Right? The person that wrote the story was someone auditioned for the game. Like, it's absolutely crazy what they've done with this game, and you've got to hand it to them, right? About a year ago, when they announced this game, there was a lot of people in my comments saying this looks boring, it looks repetitive. Truth is, all games are repetitive, but this game a year ago, people were giving a lot of flack, and now it's being called a masterpiece, which you'll love to see. I think we need more games or more studios to take risks. We need AAA studios to look at this and think, wow, we actually need to learn from this, and maybe, do our own spin on it. Maybe do a new genre. Maybe do turn-based combat, because turn-based combat can be extremely engaging, especially in Expedition 33. Lost Odyssey did it really well back in the day as well. Persona does it quite well as well. But what can I say? The developers, they've stunned everyone. They're going to have even more success. I can see them doing prequels, spin-offs. They can basically do whatever they want. It's going to be a big universe. And it's also going to be, getting a movie, which is actually rare for a video game licensed movie to get acquired before the game comes out. So that's how much praise this story was getting behind the scenes. But yeah, that's Expedition 33. Wanted to talk about it quickly. Anyway, we'll move on. Now, about a week and a half ago, for some reason, everyone on the internet all of a sudden start talking about, surprisingly, about Star Wars Battlefront. There's been no news of a new Star Wars Battlefront game, so what's in the air? Why are people talking about Star Wars Battlefront? And it turns out that just because Andor finished, people start playing more Star Wars games again. Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out in, I believe, 2017, and it launched at a time where microtransactions were all over the place. It had a horrendous launch, and it had a single-player campaign, which is what people wanted in the first game. And the entire fandom has kind of gone back to this game, to the point where you have a multiplayer game from 2017, and it had like 18,000 concurrent players on Steam. And there's a bunch of people playing on Xbox. I think in the UK it actually got into the top 15 on a more top sold games. So like, Star Wars Battlefront has had this massive resurgence, and people are loving it again, and people want a Star Wars Battlefront 3. Unfortunately, it looks like EA might not be doing that, because EA plans to kind of stop doing licensed video games after Star Wars Jedi Survivor 3, or Fallen Order 3, whatever you want to call it. And I think that is such a shame. In the past week, the Black Panther video game was cancelled. The Iron Man game is still in development, thankfully. But it looks like EA is really giving up on single player, and not even just single player, but licensed video games. And I think that's such a shame. Over the past several years, licensed games have actually been really good. This isn't back like the 7th gen, where you'd have a licensed video game like Hellboy, the video game. Let me tell you, that game is awful. You have the Green Lantern video game, which people didn't like. The Thor video game, which no one likes. But now it isn't like that. And you have EA, who they do have very talented studios making excellent games. And you just have them like giving up on licenses. I think it's a joke. I really do. If you go back, 11 years ago, EA acquired exclusive rights to make Star Wars games. And do you know what we got in that time? We got Star Wars Battlefront, we got Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, we got Star Wars Battlefront 2, and Star Wars Squadrons. We got 4 games, one of which doesn't have a campaign, one of which launched in a horrendous state with microtransactions. Star Wars Squadrons had minimal support after launch, and they did have massive success with Fallen Order, which is great. But I think that's terrible. They've cancelled so many Star Wars games. There's multiple Marvel games being cancelled. And I think this is a step in the wrong direction. Disney, they want more video games out there. Maybe the licenses are way too high. They may cost way too much for these companies to want to do more licensed video games. But I just think it's such a shame that it's, 2025, and we barely get superhero games now. Star Wars games release once every couple of years. Like the last new Star Wars game was Jedi Survivor in 2024. And the next big Star Wars game releases in 2026 with Zero Company. And that's going to be called niche when that comes out because it's an XCOM game. So, it bothers me a lot, but I just want to talk about it because I think Star Wars and Marvel, we need to see more games by these licenses. And, maybe Disney has to lower the price. We just don't know. I'm sure all this stuff will come out in the end, but yeah, Black Panther cancelled, and no more Star Wars games after Jedi Survivor 3, or whatever you want to call it. And for people that haven't played Jedi Survivor, please do. It's literally incredible. It's one of the few games I've actually given a 10 out of 10. It's one of the best single-player video game experiences of my entire life. It's stupid how good that game is. Okay, I've just had an update from Logan. The weather's killing his internet. He'll hop back in if he gets a chance. I live in the UK. We don't really get tornadoes. And if we do, it's those small ones that can pick up, leaves and stuff. But, yeah, it's a shame we see less licensed titles than ever before. You have Warner Brothers. They do have the Harry Potter license and the DC license, so we will continue to see stuff from them. You have Embracer, which basically owns the Lord of the Rings IP at this point for video games. So basically, we're going to have to lean on Embracer and Warner Brothers for licensed content. It's terrible news, in my opinion. It's such a shame. And hopefully we'll see more games in the future in these licenses. I'm sure Sony will do more Spider-Man games, but excuse me. Yeah, just wanted to talk about that quickly. Because it's 2025, and thinking about it, how many superhero games do we really have on console? We have, the Batman Arkham trilogy. We have Arkham Origins, which is backwards compatible, but we won't include that because you can't buy it. You have the Guardians of the Galaxy game. You have, what else? That's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else. There is that Marvel game coming out next year, Marvel 1942, I think it's called, Rise of Hydra, which looks great, but it's a shame that we have so little games coming out that are superhero based. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? We'll talk about this quickly because it's kind of a big deal. It's Sega's 65th birthday. Sega's been a huge part of Xbox in the past, huge part of the gaming industry, and to think they are 65 years old, they had consoles going out for decades. They have some of the most interesting IP on the planet. You have Yakuza, Persona, you have things like Sonic the Hedgehog, which is bigger than it's ever been before, especially with the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, which has kind of opened up the masses to Sonic the Hedgehog, and I'm sure they're going to do even more Sega IP in the future. But yeah, Sega, 65 years old. Who would have thought? And I'm sure we'll actually see some Sega stuff later on during the Xbox Game Showcase. But yeah, Sega turning 65. Okay, we'll talk about this. Now, this is actually a good one because I thought this wasn't actually going to be announced for another year. And that is James Bond First Light. So this is going to be a third-person action-adventure game set in the Bond universe, made by IO Interactive, the developers of Hitman. They got the rights to this, I think, 3.5 years ago. It got its Switch announcement 2 months ago, and yeah, they're going full steam ahead. They're going to announce it this weekend. It's going to be a big deal. We haven't had a video game set in the Bond universe since, I believe, 2011 with 007 Bloodstone by Activision. So it's been a while. And, this is obviously going to be on, Xbox, PC, PlayStation, Switch. It's literally going to be on everything. But yeah, a proper, full-on third-person Bond game. And, if you think back on 360, we had a couple of Bond games. We had the Quantum of Solace video game, which was essentially just a Call of Duty first-person shooter campaign, but with a bit of a Bond theme going on. I would say that the game is better than the actual film because Quantum of Solace it's not that good. Let's be honest. But yeah, now when will it come out? Who knows? I do suspect that it will come out this year though, because if you go back a couple of months ago, so many developers kept throwing out the term 2025, summer 2025, as this like vague release window. But ever since Grand Theft Auto got moved to 2026, it's open season. I have this database of all the games coming to Xbox over the next several years, and I change the dates on them whenever they need updating. Let me tell you, there's a suspicious gap in release dates when it comes to October and December. October, November, December. Very, very empty. So what you're going to see over the next week, especially, Summer Games Fest and the Xbox show, you're going to see a lot of games get release dates for October and November. As they should. Because, and I'll say this again, I've heard from multiple developers that the second GTA got cancelled, not cancelled, God, can you imagine? People lost their marbles. The second,
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, I'll get you back, right? Just the second...
You mentioned GTA up here.
Yeah, so the second that got delayed, I heard from a bunch of developers, like, they were so happy because, like, the holiday season's very packed every year. Everyone knows this, October is the month your wallet dies, basically, because there's so many games out. But, GTA moving has made it so, like, that whole month's clear. No matter what Rockstar says, that game was originally going to come out in October. It was originally going to come out in October. And, October's the best month for that game, but now it's open season. If anything, now that month is cleared up, I think October's probably going to be the best month for video games this year. And for people that watch the channel, I do these, top 10 or top 20 lists of games coming to the console of that month. October's normally busy. You have no idea. I might actually have to do a top 30 this year, which will be a first, basically. But anyway, I've been rambling on. Logan, we can hear you now. How you doing? What have you been playing? Okay, as soon as I asked him that, his mic stopped working. Now, let's see. Logan, can you hear us? Okay, he's still having issues. Now, I don't know.
Okay, I think I'm back now. Sorry, it's been like monsooning outside.
It's okay, as long as you're safe, man. That's all that matters. But, like, what have you been playing, man? Okay. You got again. Oh.
Okay, what did you say? We laughed and then you
I was asking what have you been playing?
Something.
You know what, Logan? Every time I ask you a question, you just keep cutting off for some reason. Like if the weather is that bad, I'm sorry to hear, man. I'm sure he'll message us. But tornadoes, they're a thing, and I can imagine they'd be they kind of annoying. Hell, I live in the UK, right? The worst we get is basically light rain, and let me tell you, that light rain can stop the internet almost completely. So if you could jump back in, whatever. But I can't even imagine what it's like. I've seen the movie Twister, and what was the remake or second film called Twisters. I actually loved that, saw it at the cinema. It could be pretty hairy out there. Anyway, we'll move on. I did think it was kind of funny how every time I asked him a question, then the internet cut off. But as long as he stays safe, that's all that matters. But yeah, we're getting a new Bond game. The thing is, it's IOI Interactive. I keep calling them IOI Interactive. It's IO Interactive. They are such a good developer. They opened up a new studio a couple of years ago for a new IP. So as far as I know, they aren't making this new Bond game. So they have 3 games in development. They have Hitman, they have James Bond in this other game, which might be that Project Dragon game, which originally started off as an Xbox title. I'm guessing we're going to see it this weekend because IO Interactive are also hosting their very own. They're hosting their very own game show. Now, I know Logan's internet is messy because of the whole tornado thing. Is my audio coming through okay? Because again, before the show went live, horrendous issues with OBS and YouTube Studio. Nothing I can help. But anyway, just let me know in the comments, is the audio on my end okay? Anyway, so yeah, that show is coming this weekend. It should be pretty good. And they also got to show off Mind's Eye. Mind's Eye's developer, Leslie Benzies' new game, who used to work on Rockstar titles such as Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto 5. It's had some drama behind the scenes because you have people clickbaiting saying it's not an open world game, even though the developers came out and said it is. It doesn't have like full on open world elements to have fun with, like a GTA game with side missions and activities. There's going to be races, but they're also going to put in tools for developers to actually make mini games or basically whole missions. It's going to get missions post launch. I think they're actually going to cover this stuff in that showcase this weekend. So in a world where we get barely any third person shooters set in an open world city, I think Mind's Eye looks really cool. I think a lot of people might enjoy it. If anything, I think it has actually more in common with a Mafia game. If you've played Mafia 1 and 2, yeah, they're set in an open world game. It's an open world area, but there's nothing to do, right? You go from mission to mission to mission. There's no side activities. There were collectibles in the second one, but that's it. That's really it. So if it's anything like that, I think it'll be fine. I do think its price, at least in the UK, is kind of fair. I think it's £55 in the UK. And if it's going to get content for at least 1 year, that's fine. And it's also getting multiplayer. That's the one thing nobody's talking about. It's getting multiplayer post-launch. They haven't gone into detail what that is, but it may be using, mission-style segments like what the campaign does with gadgets. But I'm sure we'll see all this stuff in the future. A lot of people are quick to bash developers, call them lazy, or say this game's going to be awful before they come out. But like, this is a new developer. This is their first game. And yeah, you do have Leslie Benzies that worked on GTA. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt simply because the game looks good and they clearly have a roadmap for what they want to do in the game. Will it launch broken? I don't think so. I have heard it plays pretty good, but we will see. Okay, so we'll talk about this quickly. This is going to make some people angry. I know it made me angry. So Ubisoft, and I love Ubisoft, Ubisoft out of nowhere the other day just randomly posted a picture of Sam Fisher's face. And that's it, right? And my blood was boiling because it was so vague. And if you know me, I'm a huge Splinter Cell fan. Huge. And they posted a picture with no context. This close to the game showcases. Ubisoft doesn't have a showcase this year. As of right now, they don't have one. And we were told that there's going to be a remake about 3 years ago. And we've had absolutely diddly squat since. Nothing. We've had concept art of this game that's in development, allegedly. We've had developers come out, say that they are going to stick to the original, be faithful to it, allegedly, and we've had absolutely nothing. And maybe I'm getting a bit annoyed because I am a Splinter Cell fan, and I've waited 12 bloody years for a new one. And I will gobble up this bloody remake. I know I will. And apparently, there's going to be a remaster of Blacklist. And you know what? I'm going to be such a shill. I'm going to be such a hypocrite and buy that as well. It's all my fault, really. But apparently we are getting 2 Splinter Cell games. But the fact that they don't have a showcase planned at all, I have my doubts. There's certain fan bases have been waiting for years, and I know it's not on the scale of Half-Life, where Half-Life 2 Episode 2 ended on such a cliffhanger, and it's been 20 years, and we don't know what's happening. But Splinter Cell fans have been left in the wind. Almost like Rayman fans. They've had it worse. there hasn't been a Rayman game in 12 years. But anyway. We could be seeing something from Splinter Cell this weekend. I'm being extremely hopeful. Maybe it'll be on Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest, presented by Jeff Keighley, hosted by Jeff Keighley, starring Jeff Keighley, wrote by Jeff Keighley, everything Jeff Keighley. It might be on that show. Who knows? But I think it's time. It's been too bloody long. A lot of people make fun of Ubisoft and how they air quote crumbling as a company, but they make some really interesting games. Assassin's Creed 1 through Shadows. I haven't played Shadows yet. It's on the to-do list, but 1 through Odyssey for me, I had such a great time. Splinter Cell was incredible throughout the years. You have Ghost Recon, and I think Ghost Recon for me topped out at Rainbow Six Vegas. I loved playing Rainbow Six Vegas. We have a super chat by Nick Wendland for the $5. Thank you very much. He says, "Are you guys excited for the Switch 2?" So I'm not getting a Switch 2 just yet, but I will say this: I'm excited that we actually have new hardware out. Over the past week, I have seen Nintendo get a lot of hate online over the Switch 2, and maybe it's because I have such a relaxed outlook on gaming that I don't think it's a big issue. Do you need to connect to the internet to get the thing working straight away? Yes. But the people complaining about it are using the internet to complain about it. So I don't see the problem. But I love what the Switch is doing. The Switch, if you look at how far Nintendo's came, right? The Wii U came out in 2012, I believe. And it was a disaster from day one, right? The games weren't selling. The hardware wasn't selling. And Nintendo was at a point where they sold, I think, 13 million consoles over the entire lifespan. There was talk that people thought that Nintendo was going to be a software manufacturer, right? And then what did they do? They came out with the Switch. Absolutely blew people's mind holes, right? And I think the Switch is one of the best-selling, consoles of all time. I think it's over 120 million consoles or something. And Nintendo, they did their thing. They came out with some Pokemon games. They have their Mario Kart game has sold 80 million copies. 80 million copies. Animal Crossing. One of my friends, she always talks about Animal Crossing. Bloody loves that game. And I think Animal Crossing sold 30, 40 million copies. So if Nintendo has the right hardware and they release their first party games, they always sell. I can't think of a first party Nintendo game that hasn't sold well. As far as I know, they all do. In fact, I think one of the least selling games or franchises that Nintendo does is actually Metroid. And Metroid has huge hype right now because of Metroid Prime 4. And that game looks bloody fantastic. So I will get a Switch at some point. Just because Metroid, I'm really interested in Metroid. It's a sci-fi shooter. Let's be honest, I'm going to be there. It looks so good. It will be interesting to see when Nintendo does do their own showcase or direct thing, because there's usually huge third-party games at their shows. Cyberpunk was at their show. Final Fantasy VII Remake was at their show, which we'll be talking about in a bit. But I think Nintendo, they're going to have huge success. But will I get a Switch 2, Nick? More than likely, very eventually. Very eventually, that's a new term. But yeah, that console's going to be huge. When's that released? This Friday. I will say this about the Switch, and the Switch 2. I think they nailed the form factor, right? The little magnet Joy-Cons on the side with the little connector in the middle, just the thinness of the tablet, the size of the screen. I think format-wise for a handheld device, they absolutely crushed it. If anything, the Switch 2 looks like a high-end Samsung device or an Apple device, which is really cool. It will be exciting to see what Nintendo does in the future, because Nintendo, in my opinion, they don't need to come out with a massive base console in the future. They can just continue doing Switches, Switch 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe just call it Nintendo at some point, and it's just a Switch. But they nailed their games, they nailed the hardware, and I keep saying this about the Series S. Developers need to optimize for these games, and they'll be fine, right? The Series S, developers should optimize for it. Games will be fine. Same with the Switch 2. The only downside with the Switch 1 was that, hardware-wise, it was essentially two Xbox 360s duct taped together. I'm being sarcastic, but, that was what you were getting. So we had Xbox One and PlayStation 4 games that could barely run in the thing, unless some magical studio did their, impressive port with the Witcher thing and all that stuff. But yeah, I think Nintendo, they're going to have huge success. If anyone's debating whether Nintendo's going to have success, I don't know if they've been reading the room. Does Nintendo get away with a lot of things that other companies can't? Yes. But it's good hardware with good games. That's all that matters. But yeah, the whole Splinter Cell thing, I will say I was a bit triggered. Just posting that picture of, Sam Fisher's face, it looking like that. And a lot of people were saying it looked like a low poly version of what Sam should look like. What I took from that was that it looks like what Sam Fisher looked like in the first game on the original Xbox, but with more polygons. That's the best thing I could say about that. But I do hope that we do see Splinter Cell this weekend, because I don't want to be a downer. It's a positive show, but I can't go another generation without a Splinter Cell game. Right? I know there's rumors of 2 games coming this year, or 1 coming this year and 1 next year. I just need to see these games, That, I can play them via backwards compatibility. Hell, you can't even buy the first game anymore because Ubisoft removed a bunch of the old Splinter Cell games from the Xbox Live Store. So, it remains to be seen. We'll see what happens, but I'm cautiously optimistic. We have another super chat by Nick. Thank you for the $2. It says, will you be live streaming the Xbox Showcase? Yes. I was going to talk about that later in the show, but I'll briefly mention it. For the past 2 years, I've live streamed the show, so you could watch it live at the same time as me, and I'll talk before, during, and afterwards. As of now, that's the plan. And you'll be able to watch the stream on my channel. It'll be perfectly crystal clear, like last year and the year before. That's the plan. And I keep saying that's the plan just because anything can happen. But I think we can do 3 years in a row. It should be good. And I think last year, pre-show, we went an hour beforehand and then an hour afterwards. And if something does happen, which I think will happen later in the show, at the Xbox show on Sunday, I have a video that may or may not go live about a minute after Xbox ends their show. I'll just put it there. But yeah, as of now, that's the plan. But I'll go into detail later in the show. But thank you for the $2, Nick. But yeah, Splinter Cell, hope we see it. In my dream is that during the Xbox showcase, I don't really care whose showcase, is that the screen or lights will go dark and we'll just hear those night vision goggles turned on. And then we will see Sam Fisher on screen. I'm sick of waiting. It's been bloody years. Oh my God. Like, if it gets to 15 years and I haven't seen a Splinter Cell game, I'll cry. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, the Witcher 4 tech demo dropped today, and normally I get a bit excited by these tech demos. I like to, see what the new tech's going to be like, because, when you watch a tech demo, we can basically look at that and think, maybe this is what games will look like next generation, right? Because the stuff I was seeing in this, I was thinking, is the Xbox Series consoles and PlayStation 5s really capable of what I saw today? And the truth is, kind of, right? So, like, if people go back and watch the Witcher 3 tech demo years ago, the game we got kind of looked like that. However, less volumetric fog. Lighting wasn't as good. Ray tracing on console isn't anywhere near as good as path tracing. Stuff like that. So, like, the fancy PC version, and even though they did say it was running on a base PlayStation 5, it should look good. But again, tech demos are vertical slices of very small contained areas where everything's controlled. So, like, I hope it looks like that. I was very impressed with what I saw. Weirdly enough, one of the most impressive things I took away from it wasn't the fun, looking like base gameplay when it comes to movement. Not the beautiful backgrounds, not the crowds of people. It was the horse. I've played Red Dead Redemption 2 so much that I'm not even kidding, I've always thought and still think that no other company can outdo how horses look in a game, right? And that sounds so weird if you just jumped in this show and you're like, why is Jamie talking about horses? Just bear with me. Horses in Red Dead Redemption move and look like real horses. And I saw that Witcher tech demo today, and I thought they've actually outdid Rockstar. I never thought anything would outdo Red Dead Redemption 2. Ever. Not in my lifetime. Because that bloody game cost so much to make. They had so many developers making that game. They had, if people can find the pictures, they're hilarious. There's like cats, dogs, horses, all mocapped with those little like ping pong ball things. And I just thought no other developer's going to put this much time and effort into something most people won't even pay attention to. And here we were, Witcher 4. Incredible. And, one of my big worries, and I'm not worrying about this now, is that I like games that look a specific way. So, The Witcher 3 uses the CD Projekt Red engine, the Red engine, and like it's a gorgeous game still. It doesn't matter if you play it on a Switch, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series console, PlayStation 5, PC. The Witcher kind of looks the same on everything, right? The same art style, shall I say. And I would want a Witcher 4 to look the same, but prettier. If that makes any sense. The same, but different, but still the same. But that was my dream. And I looked at this Witcher 4 footage, tech demo, shall I say, and I got exactly what I wanted from that. It looks like The Witcher 3 in art style, but it looks like better. I'm sorry if I'm confusing people with my extreme, technical talk, but I liked what I saw. Ciri looked fantastic. I mean, Ciri, the world looked great. My biggest takeaway outside the horse was like the volumetric lighting. The whole thing looked great. Now, will the game look like that when it comes out? It remains to be seen. We are going to see gameplay, I think, over the weekend. And, CD Projekt Red, they've had like a string of great games, right? The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings, and I played the 360 version, had to be one of my favorite RPGs that generation. I absolutely loved The Witcher 2. And if you have a 360, it's backwards compatible. Runs in 4K. Still looks good, shockingly. They had that. They had The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3, in my opinion, is a masterpiece. Launched as a masterpiece, still is a masterpiece. It's just gotten better. But it launched a bit buggy. the text. I don't know if people remember the text of Witcher 3 launch day was so tiny, right? You needed like a magnifying glass to read all the tiny text. But it had bugs. The fact that every item you picked up had weight, including crafting materials. They did patch that, the text, and basically all the small issues. But they had like great success with it. And then Cyberpunk, it launched in a bad state. I personally held off. I had my copy day one. I even bought the bloody guide. I have the collector's edition controller. And like I was sold on. I was probably the first person on social media to talk about Cyberpunk, right? With that original trailer, with the woman in the street, with the blades. Like I was hype training Cyberpunk 2077 since 2012, right? Like that's a long time, and I was told like maybe you should wait for the next gen upgrade, and I did. I waited 2 bloody years for that next gen upgrade, and let me tell you, they fixed the game. Gorgeous, performs great. And Cyberpunk now is a game where a lot of people regard 2077 as an incredible sci-fi RPG. And bit of a tangent. I haven't actually finished it. I get so obsessed with doing side quests in video games that I put like maybe 60 hours into it, and I was just doing activities and side quests. So like I haven't played Cyberpunk 2.0, where they changed the handling of the guns and base gameplay, added a bunch of different things. So like even though I will say it's an amazing game, I want to get to it this year. It has all of its fixes, 2.0 update. And I can't wait. There's so many good games coming out that like I somehow have to play all the existing games that's out and still find time to replay Cyberpunk and finish it, to replay The Witcher 3, replay Mass Effect Legendary Edition. My God, it's been 2 years. And I want to go through Skyrim again. Excuse me, I'm drinking. The problem is when you do a solo podcast, you don't want to have like breaks to take a drink. So like I'm sitting here and it feels like my throat's been cleaned with sandpaper. But yeah, The Witcher 4, if people haven't checked out that tech demo, it looks so good. Like, yes, you can get roped in and think it's a tech demo, it's a vertical slice. But if that's any indication of what The Witcher 4 may look like, kind of, then we're in for a bloody good time. Because that looked good. Ciri looked fantastic. The horse looked fantastic. Crowds. I don't know why games still do this. No matter how far technology goes, it feels like we get very small crowds in video games. Assassin's Creed has been doing it well since day one. But it feels like it's not often we see big crowds of people in games. There was lots of dynamic things that I saw these characters do. So once you finish listening to this podcast, hope you enjoyed the show. But once you finished listening to this, and I'm guessing an hour, watch that demo and look at what the people are doing. There's a woman emptying a bucket of like water off the bridge into the lake, right? There's someone cleaning fish. There's someone like playing an instrument. All these like weird small things characters do in the environment, and that's what makes these games feel alive. That's why Red Dead Redemption 2 feels so alive when you walk around, because there's people doing a daily routine, and all that stuff's been pre-programmed, and there's a lot of different activities these characters do. And it looks like they're doing that with The Witcher 4. The Witcher 4 was rumored to cost around $400 million. Not gonna lie, you can kind of see where that money's went. Like, that looks damn good. And if that's any indication of what the characters do. And yeah, The Witcher 3 did do that, but not on this scale. And again, I still think The Witcher 3 is one of the most impressive games. Like, you play that game, even without its next-gen upgrade, it still looks damn good. Damn good. Anyway, that's The Witcher 3 or The Witcher 4. The funny thing is, we are meant to be getting the remake of the first game beforehand. So, my theory is that The Witcher remake is coming next year, and The Witcher 4 will come out the year after. That's just my guess, anyway. It will be interesting to see what The Witcher remake is going to be like, because The Witcher wasn't an open world game. It was kind of linear compared to 3, and 2 even. 2 was a hub world game. My God, I absolutely love The Witcher 2. But The Witcher 1, it wasn't anything like that. It was kind of held back by its budget at the time and the technology. And, the voice actor for Geralt wasn't exactly the best then. But now he's like one of the best. But yeah, the first game was super linear. And I can't imagine it taking a long time to make that first game. Fun fact, I did actually play the first game briefly via the service on Live. Yeah, that was my experience with The Witcher 1 on Live. That streaming service, which went away, back in 2010? Something like that. My God, that was awful. I was playing that with a keyboard and a touchpad. That was a depressing sight. I'm not gonna lie. Trying to play a Witcher game with a touchpad. Never again. But hey, The Witcher 4, it looks great. I'm sure they're gonna do really well with it. Who knows? Maybe we will see The Witcher remake this weekend. Maybe at the Summer Games Fest show, starring Jeff Keighley, wrote by Jeff Keighley, everything about Jeff Keighley, or the Xbox Game Showcase, because Xbox, they've had a really good relationship with CD Projekt Red in the past. In fact, The Witcher 2 was on 360. Cyberpunk was debuted on the Xbox Showcase, Xbox E3. So who knows? Maybe it'll be there. You know what? I want to talk about this quickly because it happened just after last week's show, and that is Randy Pitchford. If people aren't familiar with Randy Pitchford, just type Randy Pitchford USB stick. You'll know what I mean. So Randy Pitchford kind of made this comment about 2 weeks ago, talking about how someone said, "Hey, I hope Borderlands 4 isn't $80." And he said, if you're a fan, you'll find a way to buy it. And I thought that was such a pig-headed move. That's not a way to talk to your fans. It's a rough time people living in, and you're basically telling someone, no matter what way you'll find a way to get Borderlands. Maybe this person will rob a bank, right, to play Borderlands 4. And he came out and said, he apologises, he didn't realise how bad it sounded, but, I'm 100% sure he knows how much that game's going to cost, but there's this kind of disgusting notion I've noticed from executives where they think it's okay to talk like that to people, right? These millionaires, that they think it's completely okay to tell people, oh no, it's okay that we're going to charge you more. And that just left a really sour note for me, because the price of everything's going up all the time. It's so annoying. People are getting sick of it. I always see the memes about eggs in the US. But I drew a line at $70 games. Right? I drew a line there. I complained about $70 games. I wasn't going to stop because it went up another $10. And hell, I live in the UK, right? If prices go up to £80, that's $105 for a video game. And if you live in Australia or Canada, it's even more. And just the notion of these developers and executives constantly telling us that we should pay more. And a while back, and I won't mention this person's name or company they work for, this person said that I am cheap. I'm cheap because I think games weren't worth 80. Right? Sue me, right? I'm the worst person in the world because I don't think games should be 80. And they shouldn't be 70 either. Arguably, they shouldn't be 60. Every time I see a game at $50, I've noticed there's this uptick in excitement because, hey, this game isn't breaking the bank. You can buy 2 games for $100. Like, that seems really fair. And just to see these millionaires every single week make these stupid comments about how consumers should just spend more just because, they need to. New Splinter Cell, I talked about Splinter Cell before, but I think that we need to put our foot down, right? Like, if you're getting a Switch, which comes out this, Friday, you can get the Mario Kart bundle significantly cheaper than just buying Mario Kart separately, right? I think no game should be $80. I put my foot down. That's that. And I mean any game. The Witcher 4, it's going to be a damn good game. It shouldn't be $80, right? These games shouldn't cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make. I feel like I make this comment all the time, but it's like, it's not my problem that these games cost this much, right? Maybe these games don't need to look photorealistic all the time. Maybe you should scale back how many developers you have, because I've seen big games made by small teams that do impressive numbers, and sometimes you have, like, I'll use Assassin's Creed as an example. Like, Assassin's Creed has like 10,000 developers that work on a single game. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like, let's move back to like 2019 for a minute, right? Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It was the second best-selling game from the year it came out. And do you know what happened? It was $60. The sequel came out. It was a better game in arguably every way. And it came out at $70 and it sold less. Now, I'm saying the correlation is price, right? That extra $10 makes people think, you know what, I'll wait for a sale. Because unless you really cover video games, you don't need to buy games day one. There's no reason to, right? You can wait for a sale, games drop in price over a few weeks. Like, hell, in the UK, like, you guaranteed that basically any Ubisoft game, or most games, they will drop maybe £5 to £10 over a month. Like, so why wouldn't you wait? Because FOMO isn't a thing. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Fear of missing out isn't a thing. Never feel that you should be playing a game because you're seeing other people play it. Like, just know. That's a mentality that's kind of dangerous. Like, that's how peer pressure technically works. But yeah, seeing Randy Pitchford mention this about the $80 games thing, because you can guarantee that he knows it's going to be 80 and he just doesn't want to say it yet. And it's Take-Two at the end of the day, /2K. They're going to charge these games how much they want. GTA, we won't even talk about how much that might cost. But at the end of the day, as much as I like to say, vote with your wallet, it's like, look, I use Microsoft Rewards. I have never paid £70 for a video game, day one, right? Because if a game costs $70, you know what? I'll actually get £10 off with my Microsoft Rewards. It's not even a big deal, right? Hell, I've bought whole games with Microsoft Rewards. I just refuse to spend $70. 60, okay. 70, definitely not. And just saying 80, hell, there's video games in the UK that already cost 80, and it's absurd, right? Ni no Kuni 2, Wrath of the White Witch, I think it's called. It's £80. £80. That's like $105. I know I've said it before, but it's incredible. But yeah, Randy Pitchford and these game prices. Okay, we'll talk about this briefly. And I wanted to talk about this mainly with Logan on the show, so maybe we'll put it off to next week. But the Xbox handheld allegedly being delayed. We'll put that off till next week because we're going to be going over all the games during the show anyway. And hell, we don't even know what hardware will be mentioned during this showcase. But, okay, it was the first game. But the second Ni no Kuni game on Xbox is £80. What on earth? Let's see. You know what? Let's quickly talk about this. So, the Xbox Game Showcase, it's coming when? This Sunday. It's going to be a big day. I'm sure everyone listening, like, you're gonna, set up, a good time to watch that. Maybe you crack a beer open, or, in my case, a cider. Have some snacks. Basically, treat it like a sporting event. That's what I do. At least when I'm not streaming it. But it should be a good show for everyone. I think that too many people take video games way too seriously. And I want to mention this quickly because, I've been posting on social media about video games since 2012, right? That's Twitter. Other social medias. I've been posting on social media, like Facebook, back in the day, for a very long time, right? Very long time. And I have noticed over the past, I want to say, decades, like, people get really personal when it comes to video games, and I've never really understood why. People combat each other online when it comes to iPhone versus Android. That I've never understood, right? We all use the same bloody apps, but on different looking devices. But, like, people never really get personal with that, right? Same with Mac versus Windows. People don't get personal with that. But I've noticed there's been this extreme uptick, especially on social media over the past several months, where there's people I've never interacted with, ever, and I mean ever, that are making hundreds of accounts following me over and over and over again. And I can't figure out why. I just cover gaming on social media. I post the occasional meme about the video game industry in general. And that's kind of it, I don't really do back and forth arguments online with people. Like, that's just that, I post, links to my content. I post, arguably, most content I post on social media is actually video game recommendations, right? If a game's on sale, such as, let's say, Space Marine 2, right? Space Marine 2's been on sale a lot recently, so I'll post about, like, an upcoming sale. And that is the bulk of my posts, like, sales of video games, screenshots, trailers and all that stuff. And it's not a big deal, but, like, in the past year, I've had some people make hundreds of accounts, follow me, get blocked, new account, follow me, and I don't even understand why, right? The console war has become so toxic. It's incredible, and I don't understand why. People get really personal with this stuff. Before I continue, I have another super chat by Nick Wendland. Thank you very much for the $5. He says, that's why I get rid of all my social media accounts. I miss seeing your posts on social media, like on Twitter, what games you've been playing and stuff. And I've seen a lot of people quit social media. It's unfortunate, but I completely understand why people do it, hell, like, there's people that used to be in this, like, chat right now. Used to be in the chat all the time, and then about a year ago, people just fled. People just stopped posting on social media, stopped even commenting on my YouTube videos, and, like, people just, like, kind of gave up on it. And I completely get it, right? There's that, it would be very easy for people to let go because it's very time consuming. It's honestly some of the, I won't even say it, and I can't say some of the things I've had to put up with on social media over the past several years. But it's been pretty bad, not gonna lie. People get really personal, like with family members and friends and stuff, and it's just video games, And do you know what's weird, right? I've been on social media for, we'll just use Twitter as an example, since 2012, right? Do you know in that time I've barely had any negative interactions? I've had a few, but not many, with Nintendo fans, right? Nintendo fans never really had a problem with. There's one I could think of, but that's basically it. PC fans, not really. If anything, I do cover PC games as well. There's, and like PlayStation fans, like, they are perfectly fine. Like, this might shock people. I have friends in real life that only game on PlayStation. I have friends in real life that only game on PC. I have friends in real life that only game on Switch. I have friends in real life that only game on Xbox. Do you know when we talk about video games? Do you know what we talk about? Games. Nobody gives a crap about what we're playing on, right? Like hell, when I play Call of Duty, I'm either playing with someone that's on an Xbox or a PlayStation or a PC, right? But like on social media, people take this whole gaming thing and make it really personal. It's like if you're spending time out of your day to like stalk and harass people over video games, like you need to find a new hobby. You really do. I never see people in the movie space do this. You know, in a lot of the posts I see in my feed are actually people in the, movie fandom, right? I never see people argue about this stuff. You know, there's the back and forth between DC and Marvel, but that's it. It never gets personal. Star Trek versus Star Wars. Let me tell you, I love both. I'm one of these. I love Star Trek. Right? I never talk about Star Trek on social media because, I tend to post about things that people seem interested in. And let me tell you, every time I post about Star Trek, nobody cares. Because, Star Trek on social media is kind of niche. But Star Trek's been around for a long time. I absolutely love Star Trek. I love Star Trek OG, TNG. Captain Picard is my boy. Best captain ever. Captain Janeway, Voyager, brilliant. Cisco, Deep Space Nine, Archer, Enterprise. I'm one of the Enterprise fans, by the way. Loved Enterprise. And, I've never really had an argument with someone online about Star Wars versus Star Trek. But gaming, it's like, what? It's like the bloody Thunderdome, right? It's like the Hunger Games. People are just eating at each other's throats all the time. It's like vultures searching for carcasses to feed on. That's what gaming's like on social media. And I think that is terrible. Right? We need to move past it. Yes, 7 of 9 was a good reason to watch Star Trek Voyager. Because, man, those first 2 seasons were awful. Oh, my God. What were they thinking with the K's on? Believe it or not, I've actually wanted to do a Star Trek podcast. No one would listen, but or movie-centric podcast or TV-centric podcast, but gaming. I love video games. I think, some people have told me, like, do I do this forced positivity thing? It's like, no, I love video games. We'll talk about the predictions thing in a minute, but, like, I love video games. I think it's a great hobby. It's a great escape. When we were all stuck in the house back in 2020 during the lockdowns, right? Gaming was a huge benefit to people, right? Like, I loved playing video games during the pandemic because, like, without getting sappy, like, I lost my dad during the pandemic due to cancer. And, like, normally, whether it's a breakup or, like, just, like, having a bad day, like, I've always spent that time with my mates at the pub, right? That's how we, deal with things. But in 2020, I couldn't spend time with my mates at the pub, right? I had to sit in my house, basically going through absolute mess because, I lost my dad, like I said, due to cancer. And, like, video games were a great escape for me. I don't know what I would have been like without video games. Going to, like, different planets in Mass Effect and saving people for the billionth time, or, playing a single-player Call of Duty campaign where I just happen to have, Chuck Norris superpowers, basically, an Arnold Schwarzenegger simulator. Gaming was a brilliant escape for me, and I think too many people just use video games as this, like, I don't know, like, they use it to aim negativity towards something. Maybe they have issues in their life and they, like, put that into video games and they want to bully people or harass them online. I don't know. I'm talking in circles. But my point is that it's video games. Too many people take it way too seriously. And we need to get past it. And, like Nick said, he left social media. And it's an eyesore when you go online and you see this stuff. Like, I'll check my following list right now. Let's see. I bet in the past, hour and 15 minutes we've been doing the show, I bet I've had some of these accounts re-follow me with new accounts. Let's see. Yep. 2 new accounts. It's stupid. I know this wasn't originally going to be a topic, but excuse me, I'm having a drink. Like, I've been noticing that really badly on Twitter over the past month, and it's even happened on Blue Sky, Threads to an extent. And if you follow me on Threads, you'll know that all I post on there are gameplay clips and my YouTube video links. That's it. Right? And even there, people are arguing. But yeah, just wanted to talk about that quickly because too many people getting their feelings about it. And video games are about having fun, having a little escape. And, but especially with the Xbox showcase, you have a state of play tomorrow. I don't know what time it's on tomorrow. I'm guessing 8 p.m. UK. It's a bloody good time to be a gamer, right? If we get through this whole weekend, or week, tomorrow through Sunday, if there's no game announced that gets you excited about video games, then maybe change hobby, maybe read a book, maybe take up tennis. I don't know. Anything. Just stop being in my, visual sights. Right? I'm sorry. Okay, 10 p.m. UK. I'm just sick of seeing these talkers. It's every day. Anyway, I've been rambling long enough. Let's get into the game predictions because it's going to be a big show. And, I have been told that Microsoft, they've locked down basically everything about this show. They're not wanting any leaks. And if people have been paying attention to Microsoft's leaks in the past, they've had huge ones, right? If I remember correctly, the Xbox game showcase in 2017 and 2016 basically leaked. The Xbox Series One S leaked the day before it was announced. The One X didn't leak, but games did leak. And just basically everything leaks now. And it's really annoying. And I think that's one of the reasons why people really enjoyed last year's Xbox show is that nothing leaks. And, I predicted some things. It happened, but that's, it happens with video games. But hopefully this weekend, nothing will leak. And, as much as I joke about the Jeff Keighley game show hosted by Jeff Keighley, starring Jeff Keighley, written by Jeff Keighley, featured, Hideo Kojima at some point. Basically, any Jeff Keighley show, you can guarantee there's going to be a segment about Hideo Kojima. My point is, it's going to be a good time. I just hope Microsoft doesn't leak anything. But, prediction showcase. So, it's going to be, I'm guessing, a 90-minute show. There is going to be the Outer Worlds 2 Direct. I will say this. I think that the Outer Worlds 2 launches late October. Excuse me. Because, like I said, October, it's a very empty month. And we need some release dates. It's time. I think that will be one of the bigger games. Excuse me. Now, when it comes to the rest of the show, I think we will see a sizzle reel for certain indie games. There's been indie games that have been meant to come to Xbox and launch in Game Pass Day 1 for years now, one of which being Replaced. Replaced was announced 4 years ago, and it's a 2.5D action-adventure game set in a cyberpunk world, and that game lives in my head rent-free. It oozes style. It's all about synthwave, futuristic 80s setting. Yes, that's right, futuristic 80s setting. Visually inspired by Blade, Blade Runner, all that stuff. Basically, if you're a fan of synthwave, this is what that game is. In Replaced looks amazing. It's been put off over and over and over again. So many different delays, setbacks, all this stuff. I want to see a release date, and I think we will see a release date for that. There was a multiplayer game shown off 3 years ago called Exomecha. That was announced, 5 years ago. And it basically looked like Transformers fighting Transformers in a multiplayer game. I hope we see that. I think we will. Now, when it comes to big predictions, I think Activision are going to have a few announcements. I think they will actually open up the show with Call of Duty because it's going to be a big year for Call of Duty. I think they will show off the campaign. They typically do show off the campaign first and multiplayer later. So I think they're going back to how they used to do E3s. I think we'll see an opening for the Call of Duty Black Ops 2 sequel campaign. What a mouthful, by the way. I wish they could just go back to number and everything. But I think they're going to show a Call of Duty campaign trailer. Allegedly, it's going to be a Black Ops 2 sequel. The naming convention is going to go out the window at some point, let's be honest. I do think we will see Spyro the Dragon there in some capacity. Toys for Bob have been hinting in general that they are working on some Activision IP. And it's been so long since we've had a Spyro, the original PlayStation or PlayStation 2. There hasn't been a Spyro the Dragon game in decades. Absolutely decades. And I think it's about time we have one. Maybe there'll be a Crash Bandicoot trailer. I do think that we could see Wolfenstein 3. A full-on Wolfenstein game, a proper follow-up to Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. And we aren't going to count Youngbloods, but I think we will see a sequel to that. We're obviously going to see a trailer for the Indiana Jones expansion. Indiana Jones came out in, December? So, it's about time. I think originally they said spring for the expansion, but maybe rolled it back a bit. Now, when it comes to Elder Scrolls, I think we could see an Elder Scrolls 6 teaser, right? Nothing big. And I mean like a teaser. I mean CGI over mountain style teaser, like the one we got back in 2016. I think we could see something like that because, a lot of eyes on Elder Scrolls at the minute. Elder Scrolls Oblivion it's incredible. I think people, if they've never played it, it's essentially a new Elder Scrolls game for an entire generation. If people have Elder Scrolls in their minds, I think we will see some sort of acknowledgement about Elder Scrolls 6 because they are making it. They are heavy in development. We'll see something. I think that the way that Bethesda Game Studios in the past have announced Elder Scrolls games and Fallout games is that they've announced it the same year it releases. I think they completely screwing that over, right? I think that they're going, no, not anymore. We did this with Fallout. We did this with Oblivion and Skyrim. We're not doing it this time. Because it's all about hype build-up and people talking about these things for years. I think they need to show something. And I think a teaser will do that. And, I think we will see a Starfield expansion. I don't know. By the way, Starfield gets so much hate online. I really don't understand it. I've absolutely loved my time with Starfield. The expansion we got last year, being set on an individual planet, did that game wonders because I think handcrafted content is definitely the way to go for a Bethesda RPG. In the past they have used procedural generation. They've done that for decades, by the way. But I think we will see that. I think we will see a teaser for the next Halo game. It is a while off, the next Halo game, the remake, or whatever it's going to be. But I think we will see a teaser for that. I do think we will see Gears of War E-Day in action. Because we got the CGI or in-engine trailer last year. And that looked phenomenal. And, if you put that next to, The Witcher 4, all these Unreal Engine 5 games, if they really do look like these, visual style games when they come out, we're all going to be eating good. We're all going to be eating good. Next up, what do we have? Okay. People listened to Boom Show earlier today. He had a wild card prediction. And I'm going to throw it out there as a prediction now. Guitar Hero. Maybe this is just a wish. Because I loved Guitar Hero back in the day. And, when Microsoft purchased Activision, they did say they want to revisit IP because if you go back a couple of years ago, before Microsoft purchased Activision, Activision were essentially coming out with one game a year. Call of Duty. And that's it. Right? In Call of Duty, that's no slouch, don't get me wrong. Like, Call of Duty sells tens of millions of copies every single year. It's going to print money till the end of time. But I think that, and maybe this is just me, but I wonder if anyone chat wonders this. I absolutely miss what Guitar Hero did. Guitar Hero was so much fun, and I'll use Guitar Hero 2 as an example. It was just fun. You know, these cheap plastic guitars were just fun to play on. You know, interesting soundtracks. You know, I mainly used to play Foo Fighters back on Guitar Hero 2. It was such a good game. And, you know, there's no way to really play those games now unless you have the older consoles still. And my old 360, it's not doing too well. My PS3 sounds like it's about to take off, literally. In fact, I might actually record what it sounds like and just post it because it's loud. It's a slim. I think bringing back older IP should be a priority, and we could see some teasers for that stuff. Phil Spencer, about a year and a half ago, was wearing a StarCraft t-shirt, and in the past, the stuff he's worn when it comes to t-shirts tend to happen. I know that's a silly way for predictions to happen, but I want StarCraft Ghosts to happen. It was cancelled a long time ago. I will take any third-person shooter set in the StarCraft universe. Now, third-party stuff. I think we could possibly see the Max Payne remake. Because Remedy Entertainment, they're remaking the first and second games as a single title, which is good, because those games were pretty short back in the day. So they're remaking both of those games as a singular title, and it's scheduled to release next year. So if they're releasing that next year, I'm thinking we kind of need to see it this year. Next up, maybe this is copium or hopium, Splinter Cell. Right? I am determined to see this remake at some point in my lifetime. Right? I hope and think that we could see Splinter Cell there. Splinter Cell's had this, you know, Ubisoft's had this relationship with Xbox going back to the original. Maybe that could pay off for us there. Maybe it could. Yeah, Phil Spencer could wear a Cat Quest 4 t-shirt. I mean, to be honest, anything can happen these days, so you'll never know. I'll have to check online to see, is there a Cat Quest community? You know, they go crazy over this stuff. There probably is. I'll have to check, but that'll be funny. Now, JRPG stuff. I 100% believe we are going to see a brand new Atlas game announced. 100%. I think that we're going to see the Persona 4 Golden remake. 1,000,000%. I think that's going to be there this Sunday. Because I think Persona 6, I think whenever that's announced, will be at the Xbox show like next year. I think it's too soon for that. I think they've been remaking 4. They already have the template and format of how to make 4. And out of the Persona games I've played, I'm going to put it out there. I think 4 is the best. Maybe I just like the aesthetics, but 4 is the best. I think we'll see the Persona 4 Golden remake this Sunday, and it will launch on Xbox and basically everything else November. I mean, there's no stopping Atlas. They seem to come out with at least one game every year. And, you know, I'm lowballing it. They've came out with 2 games most years. So, like, there's no stopping them. Now, will we see a new Yakuza game there? I do think we could see a Yakuza game there. Sega and Microsoft have had this relationship that's been going pretty strong for years now. And I think we could see something related to a Yakuza 2 Director's Cut thing. Because with Yakuza Director's Cut, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, on the Switch, it's going to have English voice acting. Right? So they've gone over that entire game with English VO. That is an expensive upgrade. Right? and allegedly that is coming to other platforms later on. So I 100% expect the director's cut of Yakuza 0 to come to Xbox, PlayStation, PC 1 year from now. I 100% think that's happening. 100%. Anyway. So yeah, that's Persona. That's what? Yeah, Sega. That's Persona and Yakuza. I do think we'll see those there. Final Fantasy. Now, you look at the title. Why is Final Fantasy VII wrote there? Well, one, it gets people's attention, and two, it's been a long time coming. Project Sanctuary. Oh yeah, that I was going to mention that. So Project Sanctuary, for people that don't know, is a brand new open world action game by the same developers of Yakuza. It was shown off last year. Oh my, it looks really good. And that studio, they don't do anything wrong, right? Their games are fun. I will still say I want a Binary Domain sequel. I'm one of those people. Binary Domain is incredible. If people haven't played it, it's backwards compatible. It's normally about £8, I think, in the UK. And it's basically a third-person, over-the-shoulder Gears of War style campaign. And the story, I'm not even kidding, is part Terminator, part Ghost in the Shell. All awesome. I play that on a regular basis. It's so good. Visually, it holds up really well as well. So yeah, Project Sentry, we could maybe see that there. Final Fantasy, let's be honest, that's the big third-party one, right? And look, people can say I'm taking a broken clock is right twice a day approach with this. And yes, I thought Microsoft was going to have it there in the January showcase and the TGS last year. The truth is, Square Enix has been saying for 55,000 years now that they are committing to multi-platform support. Like Xbox is literally wrote in Square Enix's business report is a third-party platform that they're going to put games on, and it's time. It's really time. Now, my predictions for Final Fantasy is that I think Final Fantasy 16 is going to shadow drop on Sunday. I think they're going to announce it. It's going to shadow drop. People's jaws are going to hit the floor. And, maybe they'll do like a discount, much like how 505 did for Death Stranding. And then I think, Final Fantasy 7 will be announced there for October, releasing the same time as the Switch 2 version. And I think they're also going to show Rebirth, some fancy slide saying Rebirth is coming next year. And everyone's happy, right? And, as my plans said, I do plan on streaming this thing live. And who knows, like, maybe my microphone will break when if they announce Final Fantasy 7 there. But, like, I do think that's going to happen. It's been a long time coming. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, and let's be honest, I probably am. Microsoft has this big sword sale on Xbox at the minute. I'm reading too much into that. I'm very much well aware. However, it could be just like a slight, subtle message that, the Buster Sword is coming to Xbox. It technically already is in Crisis Core, but we'll just pretend that doesn't exist for a second. It might be hopium, it might be copium, it might be a little bit of both, but I think it's time. I think it's really time. Oh, that was the other thing. Final Fantasy 9. It's the 30th anniversary or 25th anniversary or something like that of Final Fantasy 9. Square Enix came out a couple of months ago, said that they are going to celebrate it in a big way this year, and they haven't really talked about much. And a couple of years ago, I believe it was in the big NVIDIA leak that Final Fantasy IX is getting a remake in the style of Crisis Core Reunion. So I think that could be happening this year. And I think there's a tiny possibility, that we could see Kingdom Hearts 4. They've been really, nonchalant when it comes to that game. They announced the game with about 8 seconds of gameplay 4 years ago or something like that, and then said nothing about the game since. And then they put out a few screenshots about a month ago and nothing else. I think that's going to be all the Square Enix stuff. And if that does happen, I expect people to play Crisis Core Reunion that same day if 16 isn't out, because it's a damn good game. Now, other first-party stuff. I think Clockwork Revolution gets a new gameplay trailer with a release date. It was debuted with gameplay a year ago, 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. And we haven't seen it since basically. It's In Exile's biggest game to date. It's their first major AAA title. I think it's time. I think it's time that we'll see that. And one of the other things I do think we'll see, and this isn't hopium or copium, I think that we are going to be legitimately surprised. I've given Microsoft a lot of flack in the past by not being able to keep things secret. Like, I get, when you have business emails, promotional information, and materials floating around on the interwebs, like, stuff does leak. If something shadow drops, you're going to have promotional material on the Xbox store, on the Windows store. It happens. I 100% get it. I really do. But at the end of the day, if you have months of build-up for a showcase where you debuting games, you better lock that crap down. And last year, they did a fantastic job at not letting stuff leak. So if they continue with what they did last year, this year, I think we could be legitimately surprised, because Microsoft, thankfully, has so many studios making games, a lot of which consistent of multiple teams, that they legitimately surprised us last year. So my biggest prediction is that they will surprise us with something new. I saw this before. I don't really think Kojima's game will be there, that OD thing. I think that still wears out. And, that's going to be a weird game. That's what Kojima does. That's one of the reasons why I love his games. They are absolutely bloody weird. I love Metal Gear. Those stories do not make sense. Let's be honest. And Death Stranding, I loved it. Every time I posted about that game, people were posting FedEx gifs. But the truth is, it's a fun game. I think it's going to be a good show. I think it's going to have surprises. The third-party stuff could be kind of endless, because Microsoft tends to have a Xbox partner preview earlier in the year. They didn't this year. So my theory is that they completely held off from doing that after having a planned one, and decided to move a bunch of that stuff to the June showcase. And last year we had an hour-long show, basically, of new games announcements, and then they had the Call of Duty Directs for Black Ops 6. I think it might be 60 minutes to 90 minutes long. Aaron Greenberg normally says, a day before how long the show's going to be. It should be pretty good. Now, there's also Summer Games Fest. Xbox is now listed on their showcase sheet. Honestly, if I was Microsoft, I wouldn't put any games on Jeff Keighley's show. Not out of spite or anything like that, but if you have your own show, why would you put other games that you own and are excited to show off on this other person's show? I don't understand why you do that. I don't care if it's a port. I don't care if it's a small game, like a smaller game, like a Pentiment 2 or anything. Announce that stuff on your own show, right? Jeff Keighley, let people pay an arm and a leg to get their game showcased on his. If I remember correctly, it might have been the Gamescom show. For 30 seconds of ads or ad space on his show, it was $250,000. No. Right, if you have your own way to show games, do it there. I hope Ubisoft has their own show. Will they? I don't know. EA, they are still up in the wind. They're not confirmed to do their own showcase yet. My God, I need anything Mass Effect at this point. But it should be a good show. And Contraband. I've been talking about this for 2 weeks, and I completely forgot about it. Contraband was announced 4 years ago. And, for people that don't know, it's a co-op, first-person, I think it's first-person, open-world heist video game, right? We barely get games that are about heists. You have Payday, and you have certain missions in GTA 5. Right? That's it. And this is the game that Avalanche has been making the longest, right? This has been in development longer than any Just Cause game. So, it should be pretty spectacular. Now, oh yeah, I'll throw this other third-party game in there, Exodus, right? Now, for people that know me, I may or may not have this slight obsession with Mass Effect, kind of. Um, ever since Exodus was shown off a year and a half ago or whatever, not gonna lie, I fell in love with that thing. Third person, over the shoulder, sci-fi action adventure game or action adventure RPG set in hub world scenarios. I'm all over that. It's basically made by a bunch of ex-Mass Effect devs, people that worked on Mass Effect 1 through 3. The GOATs have been making this game, and it's arguably one of my most anticipated games. And that apparently did move to 2026. However, I think with them moving, or should I say with Rockstar moving GTA to next year, I think maybe they move the game up. Maybe it comes out later this year. Because outside of Crimson Desert, which I do think we will see also, I think we're going to see a lot of third-party games over the next week as well, because they can actually announce release dates. As I was saying, that's why we've had so many developers say, no, we're not, showing release dates just yet or release windows, because they were all bloody scared of GTA. Right? I've been told this, right? So, now it's open season. So you're going to have a bunch of third-party developers tomorrow. During the state of play, you're going to see third-party developers there. You're going to see third-party developers on the Xbox show. I don't know if Nintendo's doing one, but it's going to be a big time for third-party developers because they can actually talk about their games now. And I think Exodus could be one of those games. Again, that might be hopium because do you know how long I've been waiting for a new third-person shooter RPG sci-fi game? Right? I've been telling developers for years, bloody copy Mass Effect, right? The template's right there. Take it, right? Nobody's stopping you, right? You have other developers copying all these other games, but you have Mass Effect sitting there and you're not... I'm ranting. I apologize. I'm needing my hit of Mass Effect and I just haven't had it yet. Hopefully soon. But hey, I think that, a lot of people are going to have fun this weekend. Look, these game showcases, they don't come often, right? We have Gamescom, and look, Gamescom is great. You have hundreds of thousands of people that show up there, but at the end of the day, do you know what the biggest game at Gamescom is? Take a guess. It's Farming Simulator. I'm not joking, and I'm not even making fun of the game. Farming Simulator is ridiculous in Europe when it comes to sales. Ridiculous, right? They need to put a battle pass in and skins, and it'll literally be Europe's Call of Duty, because that game sells numbers in Europe. But also RTS games, and I love myself some RTS games, don't get me wrong. But you have Farming Sim and RTS games, and some Space Sim stuff. I think, E3, I'm just going to call it E3. I'm not going to call it Xbox Game Showcase, Summer Preview, all this crap. Not E3 is all we have, basically, right? It is the place for gaming, for games to be announced, and we should be excited. It's going to be a good time. You have the Game Awards later in the year, but, I mean, that's a 3-hour show where it's filled with ads. You have a dude dressed up as a razor blade for Gillette. You have Muppets on stage. I don't know why they keep doing the Muppet thing. Is this a US thing? I don't know. Like I said earlier in the show, who's going to show Splinter Cell? For me, I think it's Microsoft, just because of the relationship there. Ubisoft, as of now, doesn't have a showcase. Unfortunately, they have enough games in development. Another game I do think we will see over the weekend, and I don't think this will be at Xbox's show. I think this will be at Summer Games Fest. I think that's Assassin's Creed 4 Remake. Right? This one has been in development for a while. I heard it's coming out in November. I don't know if they'll change it or not because, Assassin's Creed games have a long tail when it comes to sales. Absolutely long tails. Shadows is going to sell for the rest of the year. It's going to be a big Christmas game as well. But 4 Remake, I heard was originally coming November. And, part of me really hope it does because I love Assassin's Creed 4. You try and play Assassin's Creed 4 now, you want to crouch when you sneak around. You can't crouch. It feels weird. It feels weird because you're trying to be all sneaky, but you're not being sneaky, you're just walking. That's the thing about those older Assassin's Creed games. 1 through 4, you essentially walk slow to be sneaky. And it doesn't fit that well with what you're playing. That's the best way I can put it. But it should be a good weekend for publishers, And when it comes to Ubisoft, I think that's it. I don't think they have any other big games to show off. Rainbow Six, it's basically either already had or about to have its big next-gen overhaul with new graphics. EA, they've been super quiet. Iron Man is still coming, but there's been no indication when we see it. I assumed we will see it this year, just because it's been in development for 3.5 years. And, outside of that, you have FIFA, Madden, all that stuff coming. I can't see them putting on a showcase just to show off Iron Man. Another game I do think we could see is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin. I've been talking about this game a lot on Twitter over the past week. That may or may not be a hint, but it's coming to Xbox. I've seen a lot of places, by the way, report this is not coming to Xbox or not confirmed. It literally says Xbox in the trailer. At the end of the trailer, where it says the platforms, it says Xbox. But you have places reporting that it's not. It's a bit dodgy. Maybe people overlooked it, but it's there. But yeah. It's going to be an exciting show. So you have State of Play tomorrow, and, I've seen a lot of people go back and forth about this. I've seen a bunch of State of Plays in the past that have been good. That's where we got Alan Wake 2 gameplay, Assassin's Creed Mirage gameplay. Do you have any idea how long I waited to see gameplay of those 2 games I just mentioned? And they're on a State of Play. It's going to be a very, I think it's going to be like a 40-minute show, an hour long, multi-platform centric, but let's be honest, all these shows, they always show multi-platform stuff. I always see people argue online about that, by the way. Thanks for showing us multi-platform games. They all do this, right? Nintendo's showcase, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, they showed off Cyberpunk, right? They all feature third-party games. I did see a rumor about a 2.5D God of War game. That'd be interesting. Hopefully ancient, like Egypt or something different. I can't see a Norse setting being good for a, God of War game in 2.5D. Maybe they'll go back to ancient Greece. Anyway, but yeah, it should be a good weekend. You have State of Play tomorrow. You have Summer Games Fest on Friday, I believe. I think Future Game Show is on Saturday. There've actually been some really cool announcements. I don't think Splinter Cell will be in Game Pass. If I remember correctly, only one Ubisoft game has ever launched in Game Pass day one, and that was the Rainbow Six Zombie Extraction game. I can't remember what it was called, and I don't even think it's online anymore, or if anyone plays it. But yeah, you have Summer Games Show, or Future Game Show. I'm all over the place today. You have Future Game Show on Saturday. You have the Xbox Showcase on Sunday. I believe on Monday, there's another showcase happening by, I think, IGN. it's either IGN or GameSpot are having a game showcase on Monday. It's going to be a good time. Unfortunately, it's not like how it was back in the early 2010s, where you had a whole week starting with Microsoft had a showcase, then Sony had a showcase, then EA, then Bethesda, then the next day you'd have Ubisoft and Nintendo, and if you go back even further, Konami once had a showcase. Let me tell you, if you want a laugh, watch the 2009, it's either 2009 or 2010, Konami E3 showcase. It is apocalyptically bad. It is so bad. And it's not bad as in, the games are bad. It's the whole presentation. They bring out, I think there were like New Japan wrestlers at some point, just standing there in the background. Like, it's so bad. It's like the cringiest thing ever. And like, if you've seen this show, a bunch of memes spawn from it. Like the guy from it wasn't Silent Hill, but a guy comes out on stage and he keeps talking about how his game's going to be extreme. It's so bad. It's amazing. It's all on YouTube. And also, if you want to watch another bad E3 showcase, and this is the Activision showcase from, if I remember correctly, it's 2009. It's hosted by Jamie Kennedy, and he is clearly drunk. Like, I mean really drunk. Like, he must be like maybe 15 pints in, maybe a couple of shots, maybe a Jaeger bomb or two. Like, he's out of it. Maybe he was on some things that weren't alcohol. But like, he's off his nuts basically. So yeah, those are apocalyptically bad showcases. And I think that's the beauty about the digital only ones we have now, is that you don't see this stuff. State of play, Xbox game shows, Nintendo Directs, it's game. I think that's one of the downsides of Summer Games Fest and, Jeff Keighley's, Summer, what's it called? Gamescom Opening Night Live. What a mouthful. I apologize for that. Gamescom Opening Night Live, hosted by Jeff Keighley, produced by Jeff Keighley, starring Jeff Keighley. You have all these live, on-stage moments with developers who clearly don't want to talk in front of a crowd. Maybe maybe English isn't their, first language, so there's some awkward moments. Like, for a game showcase, all you need is game, wait for it, followed by another game. That's literally it, right? We don't need people talking on stage, telling us about their visuals and, like, their vision for the game, shall I say. Like, literally, just show us the product. That's it, right? I've been rambling. But anyway, everyone in chat has been amazing. I'm sorry Logan couldn't make it, but unfortunately, he's had tornadoes to deal with. Turns out that's a thing this time of year in the US. But hey, as long as he's safe, it doesn't really matter. I'm guessing it's pretty bad over there at the minute, especially to, like, have the internet go that bad. But anyway, everyone in chat has been amazing. Depending on what's happening or not, I will be going live on Sunday. We will be streaming before the show, during the show, and you can watch it on my stream. All good and stuff. And we'll be going live after the show as well to talk about what we just saw. If Logan can join then as well, he'll be there throughout the whole show, which would be great. And that is on Sunday. So if I remember correctly, the Xbox game showcase on Sunday is 6 p.m. UK time. You know what? I'll check while we're live, because knowing me, I'll mess it up, and I really don't want to. Okay, here we go. So the Xbox game showcase is on at 1 p.m. Eastern in the US and 6 p.m. UK time. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. I can do that. So we'll be going live. I'm thinking an hour before the show. We could talk and chat, all that stuff. I'll have video ready to go, and you can literally watch the show through the stream. Same frame rate and whatever it goes up as. But anyway, everyone chat's been amazing. We'll be going live on Sunday, an hour before the show, so we'll call it 12 p.m. Eastern. It'll be a fun time. We'll be live for like 3 hours. It's going to be a long one, It's going to be a long one. Now, the link to my last video, 10 biggest new games coming to Xbox in June, is live. Went live the other day. Hope people enjoy it. It was such a hassle putting together, but the support is greatly appreciated. These videos take a long time to make, and yeah, the link is in the description down below if you want to watch that. It's also in the playlist. The podcast episodes are also in the playlist. For people listening afterwards or joining late, there will be timestamps in the podcast after the show's finished. And also, let's see, depending on if I can or not, we may go live for Summer Games Fest. The only thing I'm kind of worried about is that Jeff Keighley's shows tend to have a lot of licensed music. And I don't want to get a strike, because if you get a strike while you're live, you can't stream for a month. So I want to avoid that. But I'll keep everyone posted. If anything, we'll just be going live at 12 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, Eastern on Sunday. Anyway, everyone, chat's been great. We'll be back on Sunday. Hope everyone has a good week. We're out, everybody. Peace.